Well, welcome back, folks. We're going to move on now from the Honda SL125 engine work, since it's appreciably done short of a few odds and ends, such as the engine side covers and the stator assembly, which we will come back to. We'll talk about the stator assembly when we get into the wiring and what we're going to do about the wiring loom in another video. So that'll be another time, another place. Right now we're going to talk about instead the paintwork that I've been working on over the last few weeks. In fact, the paint is pretty much done. When I say paint, I don't mean the body work such as the fuel tank and the body side covers that are in this, for this bike will be an emerald green. I'm talking about everything that's silver, the frame and all the associated components that go with that. And you see in front of you the steering stem for the triple tree assembly. It's been painted, and this is an original engine mounting plate. This is one of my spares. I ended up with some spare engine mounting plates somehow or other. So this is an original, and this is the repainted unit. What we're going to do is I'm going to take these outside and I'll show them to you in the daylight. It's a nice sunny day out today, and I think that will show the color a little bit better than in here under artificial light, because we are under LED lights in here in my shop. So we'll take it outside and we'll talk about this, and then I'll show you a brief view of the rest of the painted parts, the frame, and then we're going to move on to talking about installing the all balls steering stem bearing kit that's in place of the ball bearings that normally are used in the bottom and top of the steering stem. So this will be part of this video as well, and that's installing this. I don't think I've ever shown installing an all balls system before, so I thought it'd be maybe an interesting video for people that have never seen it. There might be videos out on YouTube that talk about these parts. I don't really know, I haven't looked, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to put mine together. And this is a brand new kit, by the way. It has not been opened yet. As you can see, all the bags are still sealed. But first, let's go out and take a look at these parts. Obviously, we're outside. We're on the concrete pad in front of my shop. It's late morning, so the sun is over my left shoulder, and we're facing southwest. Again, this is an original. In my right hand is an original engine bracket, and in my left is a freshly painted, as of a couple of weeks ago anyway, the part of the steering stem assembly. And I'm doing this so you can get a good look at the color match. I think it's reasonably close. This steering stem has a clear coat on it. That is a 2-pack or a 2K urethane clear. The paint underneath is not a urethane paint, but the clear coat is, and I did that for fuel resistance and quality protection. Anyway, I think it's a good match, and I'm satisfied with that. Let's go inside and take a look at the rest of the body components of the frame. Well, this isn't the greatest shot, but it's what I got to offer. Again, these components were all painted about 2-3 weeks ago now. I allowed them to dry. It was a rattle can paint, by the way. I allowed them to dry for a good week plus, maybe even 9 or 10 days. And then I came back and hit them with a 2-pack or a 2K urethane clear coat. So the finish will be very durable. So they've been just hanging here basically out of my way now for the last couple of weeks. And as I need them, I will be able to just come and get them and then assemble them onto the balance of the bike. Now we'll go over and take a look at the frame. As with the rest of the components, the frame was painted several weeks ago. Everything was painted all at the same time and was clear coated all at the same time. So this has been done for a while. And now you can see I've moved over here to my bike stand, and I'm getting ready here over the next series of videos. It won't be the next, probably next couple, but it'll be coming up as part of the series. I'll begin assembling the bike, with the exception of installing the all balls bearings and the steering stem in the steering head right there. That will be part of this video. But again, you can see what it looks like. So let's get on to the bearings and steering. Back over at the bench, you can see I've spread the components for the all balls kit out. One might ask the question, why would I use this process, this kit, versus using the standard manufacturer supplied ball bearings? Well, these I think are better quality, number one. And by the time I priced out the individual components, which you can still get from Honda, you can still buy the ball bearings and you can still buy the races. You can buy all the parts, but by the time I priced that out, it came very close to the price of one of these kits. And I think this kit, don't hold me to it, but I think it cost me around $25–30 US. I've had it for a little while now. And I just bought it from a supplier on eBay, Western Power Sports. This is how it comes. You got two seals. These are identical. If you notice the part number, 331010. It's the same for both of them. And then the bearings themselves, which are not identical. This is 993516 and 993517. And one is for the bottom here, and the other one is for the top. And you will note that when it comes to the paint, there is no paint where the bearings will fit. I did mask this part off before I sprayed it with paint and clear coat. What you typically would do is use a driver or a piece of pipe to drive the appropriate bearing onto the bottom section of the steering stem. I've got to go fish around, see if I can come up with a piece of pipe that would be the right size. This kit does not come with instructions. You do have to go online. They do have instructions on their website, which is right there, allballsracing.com. All kinds of instructions and helpful information. One thing that they do suggest, though, or they're quite emphatic about, though, if you read the instructions, is that when you drive the bearing onto this lower steering stem, that you drive on the inside race, not the outside race. Most people probably have a tendency, myself included, to drive on the outside. They're very emphatic to make sure whatever device or piece of pipe or driver you use, you drive on the inside. So I'm going to open these up, measure one of these. I did a quick measurement with a tape measure, and it seems to be about 1.5 inches imperial. But I'm not sure, so I got to double check that and figure out which bearing goes on the bottom and which goes on the top. Well, it's pretty easy to figure out which bearing goes where because they only fit one way. The 3517 is the bottom bearing, and I'll go on something like that. And then the race, which this part of the race fits up into the bottom of the frame, will fit over like that. And then the 3516 only fits that far. And then, of course, this race will fit into the top of the frame. So the first thing I'm going to do is put this bearing on along with its seal. I did, out of PVC, turn this little driver down. A little concerned it's too lightweight. I did not have any steel pipe that was about the right size. I would have to do a lot more machining of some larger pipe. So I'm going to go ahead and try this as a driver. I did turn this right here on the lathe, and that fits just comfortably, like you can see there. So the idea is to drive this bearing on. And I don't have a cap for this, so I'm going to just use this piece to drive against. I'm just trying to make do with what I have here in my inventory. So let me reset up the camera and we'll go ahead and see if we can't get this bearing pushed on. I'm going to grease it up first, of course, before I do that. Got the bearing all greased up. Got my little driver all ready to go. Again, if this doesn't work, I'll have to make something out of a piece of steel pipe, but we'll see. Seal's in place, as you can see right here. And remember, the bearing goes in this orientation. because it will fit up into this race right there. It fits up into the bottom of the steering stem. This has been lightly lubricated around the base here. So we'll see what we can do. Make sure my seal's in place before I drive it all the way down. And that went on real easy. Fits right down into the seal right there. Nice clean fit, so I'll wipe this down a little bit. That went on real easy. In fact, didn't even damage my PVC driver. What we're going to have to do now is move over to the frame, and I've got to install these races in the top and bottom before I can finish putting this together, so we'll set up over at the frame. I thought before I went over to the bike I'd show you the little puller I'm going to use to pull those races into the frame steering head. I'm going to use this little fixture I made up when I painted the bike, and you can see right there paint on each of these pieces of it's 3/4 inch plywood that I turned on my lathe, and I used those to suspend the frame when I painted it. You'll see here in a minute when I go over to the bike. But I thought those would work, since they're already turned to the exact size that I need. Those would work just perfect for pulling those races into the top and bottom of the steering stem. Now we'll go set up. Here I think you can see what I'm talking about. I did just start the top race right here, and the bottom race I just started to tap them in my brass mallet to get them started. I use this jig to pull them in nice and square. These pieces of plywood at the top and bottom are perfect sized already because those were designed to fit into this frame at the top and bottom so that I could hang it to paint it. So I didn't really have to make anything new. So what I'm going to do now is just tighten these nuts up, square up the pieces of plywood with the races, and then there he is. We'll tighten those nuts and pull those races into the frame. You notice I got washers on each side here underneath the nuts to support the plywood. I want to get those pieces of plywood nice and square before I start tightening. Square to the race, that is. Okay. So we'll go ahead and see what we can do here. I check just to make sure it's square. I'm going to turn these in. Top one I think is in already. I'm going to turn the bottom one in until I meet significant resistance, which will tell me it's seated. there, I think. I think we're probably in. Yeah, I think, turn this where you can see it. I think the bottom one is in all the way. And the top one is just about flush. I think it's down against, there's a boss on the inside of that tube. I think the top one's down against that boss. So we got the races installed, and all we're going to do is mount up the rest of the assembly. Well, I fished the hardware. This is the threaded nut. It fits down over the top of the steering stem and the washer that goes underneath like that. Just fished them out of my storage, and I have neglected to clean these up. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to clean them up a bit on the wire wheel, and then I'm going to throw them into my polisher for a day or two to brighten them up, and then we'll come back and we'll finish the assembly of this when I've got these two parts ready. It's now the next morning, and I did throw the nut, the capture nut here, and the washer that goes with it in the tumbler, the parts polisher overnight, and you can see it came out really nice. And I did coat the inner surfaces of threads with anti-seize. The upper bearing has been greased, as you can see, and the seal I have also just put a light film of grease on the inside to ease the fit of the bearing into the seal. So we're going to go ahead now and install the steering stem. Again, we installed the bearing and the lower seal yesterday. And the way this goes together, it's real simple. Slides up like that. Then the bearing goes in. Again, the inner race is already there. So the bearing slides over like that. Then the seal goes over the top of the bearing, a piece of fuzz. The seal goes over the top of the bearing and fits down nicely like that. Then I'll use the original washer. And then the nut. And we just have to spin that down. It's a fine thread. And you can see how the assembly fits like that. Now, I don't really have the right size spanner wrench to tighten this nut up. I have a smaller one right here. Really isn't big enough, but what I am going to do is attempt to use this to snug that nut up. And if this doesn't work, which I don't think it's going to, yeah, it's not so bad. Snug that down good and tight, then according to the all-balls instructions, you're to move this assembly back and forth like this a couple of times. Then I'm going to release the tension on the nut. Do the same thing. That's to seat these bearings. That's the intention behind that. And then snug it up again. And you can see I got a little anti-seize on my hand. That's pretty typical. There is no tightening or torque specification that I could find for this. I just used good judgment, and I snug it down. If I didn't have a wrench that would work, then I would use a brass drift like this. I'd simply fit it into the notch and tap it with a mallet, but I think I can get this, this wrench to work. I want to tighten it up so that there's no vertical movement of the stem, but not so tight that it doesn't turn easily. And I'm going to consider that good enough. Now I'm not going to permanently install the upper portion of the tree, which would fit over like that, and then would take this chrome finishing nut, and that would fit over the top like that. I'm going to leave this assembly off, primarily as I have to get this nut re-chromed, and I have not sent the chrome off yet. I'll probably be doing that in the next week or so to have all the chrome work redone. So at this point, I'm going to just leave this top piece off and move on to other parts of the bike. You will notice also back here where I'm pointing with my right hand, I did take a blue strap or a strap to hold. I just ran it around the frame and tied it off because I was concerned of adding the weight of this triple tree stem. The steering stem is going to want to pull the frame forward. So I just put this blue strap, as you can see back here, on just to hold the frame in place for now. That's going to be it for this video, folks. Talked about the paint, we talked about the all-ball steering stem bearings, and I showed the installation process. Any issues, questions, thoughts, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.